allow me to call, which the grand jury's rights to call witnesses. We're supposed to be able to call our own witnesses, and I wanted to call certain witnesses. I wrote him a letter and told him that, and listed the witnesses I wanted called, and the letter I got back said, you're fired. And if you, and you go to jail for 6 months for every time you speak out. And
so the judge actually, Russell, he wrote you a letter, and it was a 1-paragraph letter basically saying you are immediately dismissed.
Right.
And don't open your mouth.
And keep your mouth shut or you go to jail, that's right.
Did that seem like American due process to you?
Well, not quite, no. I didn't think that I should have been fired for doing my job, no. I mean, you know, it's okay if I don't do my job, I expect to be fired. But that's the first time I've ever been fired for doing my job. Yeah, right.
Do you think even the people the victims, all those parents that had their children killed, they really believe Timothy McVeigh was the sole
Most of them
perpetrator?
do. Most of them do.
Do you think any of them have an inkling that there's something else going on?
Well, of course some of them do. I mean, I have a good friend who was in the building. He's a victim, and he knows the truth. And then the Edie.
And what did he do about it when he knew the truth?
It took him a while to know the truth. He's now cooperating with myself and Charles Key and other investigators investigating the building. But he didn't know what to do about it at first, because first of all, he was injured. I mean, it was a while before he recovered from his injuries. And it was a process, a slow process of him putting 2 and 2 together to figure out that what the government was telling him happened to him wasn't the truth. So it took him a while. That's why he didn't speak out early on. He didn't know what to say. He didn't know the truth. But he does now. And, of course, there were some families. Glenn Wilburn's probably the most prominent. His grandsons were killed in the explosion, and he's an accountant, so he's intelligent. He wasn't a government employee, and he figured out right quick something was wrong. He never did figure out exactly what was wrong, but he got close enough to it that they killed him.
They killed him?
Yes, they did.
Who do you think killed him?
A CIA operative.
In what year did he die?
Well, that's a good question. Happened in 97, around 97, something like that.
So
he eventually, what he did wrong, it was okay to complain and ask questions and all that, but he filed a lawsuit, and they didn't like that.
He filed a lawsuit?
He filed a lawsuit against Timothy McVeigh, which gave him legal standing to request documents that the government didn't want exposed.
And so he suddenly found himself dead.
Right.
So, Mr. Wagner, what kind of an America do we live in when an accountant filing a lawsuit to find the truth about the Murrah building demolition ends up suddenly dead? How can this go on?
Goes on, Susan. It goes on and on.
So are there no honest FBI agents besides Ted Gunderson? No honest policemen left?
Sure there are, Susan.
There are.
Sure there are. But they either have to look the other way, or they get arrested for unraveling the truth, like Jack Sanders did about Flight TWA 800.
Mm-hmm. So what police officer?
They average here somewhere about 16,000 feet or something like that. They just went down to the water. I was under 609 still ahead of us. 9 o'clock position, it looked like an explosion of some sort about maybe 6 miles out from my 9 o'clock position. Explosion 6 miles out at your 9 o'clock position. Thank you very much, sir. Contact New York approach 125.7. 257. TWA 800 set up.
TWA is such a family that for a family to lose 53 members of its immediate family was devastating, not just for me, but for everybody in TWA. Everyone else, just, everyone. We just walked around kind of in shock, thinking, how could this happen?
That woman is Liz Sanders, wife of retired police detective Jack Sanders.
That's right, Susan. And the CIA, FBI, cover-up agents convicted them for showing people, for showing and proving, for getting a little piece of the evidence out of 5,000 little pieces of foam, and proving that missile residue was on it. And in fact, Flight 800 was shot down with missiles. And for that, they were tried and convicted. And the FBI was desperately trying to cover this missile shoot down, just as the FBI covered up the demolition at Oklahoma City. And again, at the World Trade Center disaster. There's a connection here, people.
And what is that called?
It's called deniability, Susan. If the government can possibly find a way to deny the truth and make it plausible that maybe the lie is true, then they can get away with murder.
Yeah, even mass murder, and blame mechanical failure or Islamics.
On the evening of July 17, 1996 at 8:19 p.m., TWA Flight 800, a Boeing 747, took off from Kennedy Airport bound for Paris. It headed east without incident in fair skies along the south coast of Long Island. About 8:30 p.m., Mike Wire, a mechanic, saw a streak of light rise up from behind the house and head south-southeast away from shore. Behind the house and head south-southeast away from shore. At the same time, Dwight Brumley, a senior Navy NCO on board US Air Flight 217, watched a streak of light rise up towards his plane before leveling off and heading north towards Long Island. Lisa Perry from her Fire Island deck and Paul Angelides from his on West Hampton both followed the southbound streak towards eastbound Flight 800, and then each saw the northbound streak rise off the horizon at the last moment.
Well, folks, that was truly a brave police officer. One of the truly good guys whose wife's friend was killed on TWA Flight 800 when it was shot down not by one but by two surface-to-air missiles, according to the multiple witnesses who watched it from multiple locations along Long Island, New York.
So why does the FBI stop the National Aeronautics Board, Safety Board, from doing their job?
After the crash, thousands of workers made a great good faith effort to redeem the bodies and to retrieve the wreckage, but not everyone. Although empowered by Congress to take charge of such scenes, the National Transportation Safety Board failed to do so.
The Justice Department came in, remember, with all those FBI agents, and one assistant U.S. attorney in New York tells the NTSB, shut up and sit down. When Title 49 gives Mr. Hall the authority to tell her to shut up and sit down.
According to the New York Times, senior NTSB officials were furious. In times past, they might have resisted. Not in 1996. 2 years prior, President Clinton harnessed this once proud agency when he named Jim Hall, an old Gore crony from Tennessee, chairman of the NTSB board. Hall's best qualification, said the Washington Post, was his driver's license. The FBI would not let the NTSB interview eyewitnesses, not even Major Fritz Meyer, an Air National Guard pilot who stared the explosion in its face from his helicopter above Long Island.
Why are the eyewitnesses, Mr. Myers, a Vietnam veteran, and others not permitted to be interviewed, people, by anyone other than the Greenhorn FBI agents who ignore them?
Something's wrong here, folks, and ignoring what is wrong with your government may get you or your loved ones killed someday.
People, you have lost control of our government, your government, an evil government of ours, which arrested this good retired police officer, Detective Jack Sanders, and his wife for proving missile residue from the missile which shot down Flight TWA 800 during the Democrat administration of President Clinton.
And Republican G.W. Bush is not going to do a thing about it. Listen to the conclusions. Roll the tape.
Spent $40 million trying to get some scientist somewhere in America to say it's theoretically possible that this hypothesis would work. They couldn't find it.
The IAMAW couldn't find anything either. We conclude that the existing wiring recovered from Flight 800 wreckage does not exhibit any evidence of improper maintenance or any malfunction that led to a spark or other discrepancy. So why did the fuel tank blow up? The IAMAW came to its own conclusions. A high-pressure event breached the fuselage and the fuselage unzipped due to the event. The explosion was a result of this event. A high-pressure event is a technical way of suggesting an external force, like a missile. Let's take a moment to review the evidence. The Machinists Union argues for an external event. 736 eyewitnesses see what appears to be a missile. The missile tests support the witnesses. FAA radar picks up what appears to be a missile. The debris field suggests a missile. Explosive residue is found on the plane. Potential missile residue is found on the seat backs. The flight data recorder appears to be missing the final 4 seconds. Forensic evidence has been withheld. The jet fuel isn't volatile enough. No ignition can be found. No comparable explosion has ever happened before. How then can the NTSB insist on a mechanical explanation? Simple enough. There was no, quote, physical evidence of a bomb or missile.
No missing portions of fuselage were large enough to represent the entry of a missile. You may have noticed that some of the photographs of the reconstruction show what appear to be several large missing areas. However, almost all of the fuselage structure in these areas is actually attached to the adjacent pieces, but has been folded back or crushed.
Something to remember here. The top NTSB brass were pushing a mechanical thesis before much of anything was recovered. It's time to ask a tough question. Is it possible that in an administration notorious for misplacing evidence, the physical evidence from Flight 800 was misplaced as well? Consider this exchange from early in the investigation.
I wish Clinton would get off his ass and do something about this terrorism. I don't know if you could print that. Oh no, it's definitely an explosion. I tell you, when you see it for yourself, I mean the little pieces are all over the place.
We have senior FBI agents under oath in court stating that the NTSB was never allowed to see anything as it came off the floor, onto the ships, onto shore, into the hangar. It remained under FBI control. The FBI would go through it at will, take anything they wanted, no record, and that again, that's also under oath, no record of this stuff being taken wherever the FBI wanted to take it.
This leading edge, one of the parties to the investigation, when the parts were coming in, said, aha, he sees it with holes in it. He takes the part himself to the chemical sniffer. They'd run the test, it pops positive. The FBI alerts on it, and the next thing you know, the part's gone.
Hank Hughes, senior NTSB official, under oath, May 10th, 1999, before a Senate subcommittee, told the Senate that multiple FBI agents were caught red-handed at 3 a.m. one morning stealing stuff from the hangar that he controlled. We know it because it's part of the Senate record.
As part of the discovery process for his criminal trial, Jim Sanders was allowed access to information and places others were not. He learned a good deal.
I have an extensive, just an incredible series of photos that show what the right side of that plane, the wing, the inner portion of the center wing tank, what it originally looked like when it came into the hangar. It was swept up into the air. By measurement, it had been blown all the way from the floor of that center wing tank all the way up into the passenger cabin. But they couldn't live with it because you must have an external force coming into the airplane, blowing it upwards and in. Now, that's not a mechanical, that's something from outside.